I don't know if I should log in on page or not.
Hey.
What's
How is
good?
everybody doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm fabulous.
Lord, I missed y'all last week.
We
this
did.
week.
We definitely missed you last
We
week. Welcome
did.
back.
Oh,
We thought we were gonna miss you again this week.
I had to renegotiate my contract. You know, I'm back. I'm back. You know.
We're glad we're glad
Okay.
So
is that red light on, Johnny?
I'm trying to figure out, is it on or not? Is this
It's on, baby.
Is this thing on? Is it on?
It's on.
Us? I think it is. I think it is. We about to start Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube,
How y'all doing?
all the other
Hey, Twitter.
How y'all doing to log in on us and give us a share, give us a like, share us. Do not be selfish. Share this live. We'll talk about tonight. I think it is. We about to start.
Yeah.
Echo somewhere.
I think we got it. It's still going. It's not me this time.
Okay.
Is somebody TV playing or something?
No, mine is muted. Up. So.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. So Patrice had a little loud TV in the background. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and keep this running right along. We have a very special guest is coming on later to kind of talk to us about some different things. But first and foremost, I want to let you know, I want to remind you guys what we are, who we are, because we are at the top of the year. We seen y'all last week, but we're going to remind you again. So I want to just kind of share just a nice little clip that we ain't seen all year. And here it is.
There was so much fear and misinformation in the early days of the AIDS epidemic. There was a real fear of contagion, and we had to overcome that. And so we see that once again with the emergence of COVID-19.
The immediate needs when COVID-19 hit were an increased need for food. Many of our clients are still rebounding from the effects of March and still dealing with electricity and utility issues.
Early April is when we kind of realized that we were going to have to sit down and really discuss how we deliver services.
And we spent a lot of time working with staff, developing the protocols, the safety measures that would keep everyone free of COVID.
Our communication pretty much bulked up, where I may have to talk to a client once every 3 weeks. I'm not talking to them every week. Somebody's needs can change very fast.
I mostly work with the Latinx community. Pre-COVID, their main needs were medication, access to medical care, bilingual services, so I'll go with them to their medical appointments. Just calling them on a daily basis just to check in with them to see how they're doing. A lot of them lost their job, didn't really know what to do when it came to the utility bills, food. Many of them got tested positive for COVID. They didn't know how to access care. They thought that because they were undocumented, they couldn't access, medical care or get tested. I was able to provide financial services to them for their food, electricity, water.
We saw an increase in mental health issues. Many persons that didn't suffer from anxiety and depression pre-COVID now had an increased level of anxiety. They were depressed more. Our therapists have had many more clients, but they've also had a greater rate of success with mental health appointments.
We went to telehealth for our mental health counselors. We went to Zoom meetings. We went to telephone service and text, food delivery. We even set up a drive-in food bank in our parking lot.
When COVID hit, we did have to find ways to kind of figure out how we're going to do this, how we're going to continue to do outreach. We put our minds together and decided to come up with this thing called Keeping It 100. Keeping It 100 allowed us to have raw, real conversations authentically with each other online in front of everybody.
The group was just as excited seeing one another on Zoom as they were seeing one another in person.
I think without rain, people would lose that sense of having a compassionate place.
If they were not linked to us, they would not be engaged in care. Rain está acá para ayudar a la comunidad latina y para darle los servicios que necesitan a las personas que han sido diagnosticadas con HIV. Y no importa si ellos son indocumentados o no, los servicios están disponibles para todos.
All right. So that was a nice little reminder. I actually shared the wrong video, but y'all get the picture. That was a nice little reminder of actually why we started Keeping It 100, honestly. So I mean, it kind of all came back full circle, which is kind of what I wanted anyway. Which is kind of what I wanted anyway. So this is the outreach team. We're missing one person. So all of us pretty much go out into the community pre-COVID. And we're doing testing, we're building rapport with the community. So like you heard in the video, due to COVID, we had to find a different way to kind of do outreach. So we got our heads together and came up with this platform, Keeping It 100, to allow us to do outreach our way.
It's so fun.
Which is authentically sharing our stories, sharing our experiences with you guys, and and we kind of learning together. So this is it. This is us. And I thank you guys for joining. So we're gonna move right on along. I want to actually introduce this next segment, and this segment is called.
Y'all know what it's called.
Listen up with Sean.
Y'all know what it's called.
Listen up with me. Yeah, listen up with me. What's going on? What's going on?
What's up? Talk to me.
It's Thursday.
How you doing?
It's Thursday.
It is.
Listen, y'all already know I came with a little gossip. I came with a little tea today, a little tea, and give y'all too much. I'm gonna give you a little bit, you know what I'm saying? But we're gonna go ahead and jump it off real quick with something real smooth, something that I was just, informed about I wasn't even just informed about it. I've been know about it, but I didn't think it was true. Have y'all heard about Wendy Williams coming out with her movie? Like, it's about to be a whole movie about Wendy Williams. Now, listen.
But why though?
Let me say this.
How you doing?
I'm not the biggest fan of Wendy. Okay, I'm not. I'm just being completely honest. And it's not because of I don't mind her spilling tea and talking and having those realistic conversations. It has nothing to do with that. Yeah, I just don't think that it deserves a movie, or she deserves a movie. I'm gonna say it. She doesn't deserve a movie.
Like you said it right the first time.
What we not gonna do?
What do we need to know? What do we need to know?
What we're not gonna do is play. Okay.
She does have importance in pop culture.
Thank you, Bryce.
The way she did it was not very nice.
It doesn't, but she is a pioneer of pop culture.
How? Her controversial interviews, her controversial statements.
Yes.
How she rise to fame, stuff like that.
Because she sits on her talk show and talks about things that already are broadcasted on social media and stuff.
Everything is not, but before all of that, radio was a big pioneer and actually connected those dots.
It's
what happened to her radio career, right?
All of that happened, but
that messy ass mouth.
But that's all radio. That's all radio, though.
But she was also high too.
Radio is not trying to put a recreation of somebody's death on fucking air. Right. All radio is not trying to connect different rappers and artists with fucking each other. That's not what all radio does.
But that's what the people wanted, and we got it. And it's simple. We wanted that. We wanted that. We loved it. Yes, it is.
Definitely not.
The ratings were off the chain every single time. The people wanted it. She provided it, and we watched and we listened.
And Whitney called into the
I
radio
feel like
to cuss her
I feel
out.
like it was more
Yeah,
controversial.
Whitney
It was more
definitely cussed her
controversial
out.
than anything because it seemed like when she, you know, even when she addressed situations and she had people come on her show, it was like people would like the way she would antagonize them, the questions and stuff she would ask, like she was making them not like comfortable. Like,
And
why
then
would you want to be in
she
the
would
presence
always
of somebody
agree
like,
not to ask those questions, and then she would anyway.
like you invited me on your show to be shady.
Right.
Yeah. And you
then
go
I
on a
beat
winning
your
radio show,
ass.
just go expect the
Then
hands
what?
on shade.
Now
You
I'm
saw
mad because I want to fight an
girl.
old lady.
That's
Dion.
why. That's
was
why when Keke Palmer got her together.
Yeah.
Yeah, Keke Palmer got her right together.
And I also think too, though, like
I'll go on her show. I don't care.
And I also think that even like she had built a reputation up. So like by the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th celebrity, you already know what Wendy's going to give. It is your choice whether or not you're going to go to her show. You know what she's going to give.
Yeah, that's your choice.
I mean,
I actually
totally
think it
agree.
elevated a lot of people's careers. Maybe not big, maybe not slightly, but there was some controversy to your name once you went to Wendy Williams. And I just and it is what I think she held. But
everybody's entitled to an opinion.
Yep.
It is okay.
We're just
Where's my
gonna agree to
gavel?
disagree.
Where's your
gavel?
Next case.
Okay. Well, listen, we know how Johnny feels passionate about Wendy. I'm just saying, y'all, my personal opinion, I just feel like I like Wendy, but I just don't like her in the aspect of thinking like she needs to have a movie right now. That's all I'm saying. Like I don't see the whole movie. I just don't.
Virginia can't wait to see the movie.
I'm gonna watch it. I need to see
it too.
Wow.
Wow.
Why?
Listen,
because I like
y'all
the mess.
know, we keep it current and we keep it real on this show. Y'all already know when I say listen up, I need y'all to really be listening, okay? I know y'all just witnessed in this scene. If you haven't been paying attention to TV, the news, maybe some friends that actually care about politics and things of that sort.
Care about politics, care about this fucking country.
Just anything in general of that sort. I agree with that too. This impeachment,
twice.
The second.
Can we talk about the riot first? Or did we talk about that last week?
We talked about that last week.
We talked about it last time, but you can.
But I think people need to understand that he was impeached by the House of Representatives twice, and the Senate is still holding on for their vote. Mitch McConnell's talking about they're not going to have a decision till next week. Next week is the inauguration. They're playing in my face.
So they said that they're going to let him finish out his term, and then the actual trial will be in the next 2 months, which is some bullshit because y'all leaving his dumb ass in the White House. Yeah, you might have cut off his social media, but these motherfuckers are still planning wild ass shit. You don't think they had a backup account for that little black site they had?
Thank you. There's ways around all this. People out here scamming and doing all types of crazy. Like, come on now. Like,
I'm not surprised. I'm just very much disappointed.
We leaving it on social media.
Disappointment is the least.
I had no other word for it. I'm just
I am livid.
I think it's just the stuff that's going on right now that we are really seeing is just literally like a slap in the damn face. Like it's like you get so angry and so mad, but it's almost like you really can't do like what
right. I really wanted to go to Washington for the inauguration with my AR-15 up to my vest on.
It's the AR for me.
It's the 15 for me.
Light work. I need that.
Okay.
Wait, let's actually say it was a Kim Possible run and stop going up the side of the building for me.
I've seen that meme.
But I'm hearing y'all that you know we got to make light of the situation sometimes, but it's because it's really, 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 really deep, and a lot of people take this way more serious than some others do. But
I wash my hands with it. Whatever happens, Chad.
That's where I left it at too. I'm like,
just make sure you got all your bullets because they've already sold out right before the inauguration. I suggest you go get your shit now. In North Carolina, you do not have to have a permit to own a gun that you can walk around with. The only reason you need a permit is for the purchase and the conceal and carry. Protect the goddamn neck.
It gets crazy out here.
It gets real in the
field. It gets really crazy out here. It really, really do. I think some people are scared to speak up and say certain things about, you know, like their beliefs and the way that they come across when it comes to situations. Because some people don't even feel like, I've heard some people say some different scenarios and different things of how they thought maybe the situation should have went, and how some said they were there, this is what they would have did. And I don't know what my response would have been had I been in. I don't know. I don't know. Elizabeth from Knoxville, Tennessee was rubbing that onion on her eye. Me and her probably would have had it out.
I went in and
said, yes, alliances.
As I was running through the
you
door.
Gonna say it's a revolution?
It's a revolution. They pepper sprayed me.
The revolution.
They pushed me down and makes me.
They pushed me down and she said she had 1 foot in.
Right. And she got
Elizabeth.
But did you hear the black girl came up and punched her in the nose? And the security guards let her do it.
Yeah, we've seen
that. The same security guards that was out here taking selfies with y'all. Oh, okay.
Like seriously, that's what we doing? That is crazy.
Apparently, these people ain't got no fucking sense.
So,
take that off.
That's enough for me complaining. We'll bring it back.
Okay,
let's bring it back. Let's get reconnected and let's get back focused on today. Woosah. All right.
Good. Yeah.
So thank you, Sean, for that listen up today. Listen up talk. We're gonna move it right along. So today's topic is, do I have it on here? We're gonna be talking about domestic violence. And to bring this topic in perspective, we wanted to bring somebody on the line that we consider is a subject matter expert in that particular topic. So we have a sister organization that we work alongside with in the same building by the name of Safe Alliance. And Safe Alliance, have programs to provide hope and healing for those impacted by domestic violence and sexual assault. They do this with variety of other programs. So instead of me reading off a checklist, I want to allow somebody to come on and actually tell you a little bit more information about Safe Alliance, as well as about themselves. We have we have Tenille Banner coming on the line.
Welcome.
Hey.
Thank you all for having me. I'm so glad to be here with you.
Director of Corporate and Community Engagement. I'm sorry.
It's a long title.
Director of Corporate and Community Engagement. So welcome onto the show.
Thank you. Do you want me to jump right into what Safe Alliance is about?
You can jump right on in.
All right. So as Johnny shared, I work with Safe Alliance, and domestic violence and sexual assault are the causes that we focus on. We do that in a variety of ways. We run the Clyde and Ethel Dixon Domestic Violence Shelter. There's lots of smaller safe houses throughout the Mecklenburg County community, but we run the only large domestic violence shelter, housing typically over 100 adults and children every night. We also have what's known as the Victim Assistance Court Program, where we help on the legal side of things, typically assisting those who are seeking protective orders. We do some pro bono legal representation as well. And then we have our Sexual Trauma Resource Center, which provides assistance to those who have been impacted by sexual assault or rape. We, in a non-COVID world, we typically run a program through the Sexual Trauma Resource Center where we actually go out to the hospital and support those who have been raped and want to get that exam, because it's really just scary and just traumatizing process to go through. So in a nutshell, that's what we do. We have a small office also up in the Lake Norman area in Cornelius, just to better reach that part of the county, because it can be a struggle sometimes for people to get to Uptown Charlotte. And then just a brief, quick piece about me. I have worked at Safe Alliance for a little over 7 years now. I started actually working at our shelter and worked on our hotlines and supervised some of our shelter staff for a while. And then about 2-3 years ago, I switched over to our advancement team and now do more community engagement, fundraising, and that piece. So I've seen it from both sides. I got into this work because domestic violence and sexual assault are very real things to me. I have several friends and family who have been impacted. I've had my own experience with sexual assault. And my grandmother in particular, she raised my mom and her sister in a household where my grandfather was abusive to her pretty much every day. So it has that generational impact. And my mom had me as a teenager. That was kind of one of her ways of dealing with what she was living in. So it's very real. I understand it. And I enjoy being able to do something about it every day.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I'm actually going to allow Patrice to kind of lead the conversation. This is her topic. So
I keep telling you that I can't see anything, but okay. First off, I wanted to give people an actual, most people, when you say domestic violence, they only think of physical violence, but there are several different other things that come along with it. Off the top of my head, and I'm sure this is probably not all of it, you have emotional, financial, physical, of course. Those sexual. Are the only things that I know. Oh, sexual.
Mm-hmm.
I'm missing something, I feel like.
Yeah, and I feel like people take financial abuse with a grain of salt because they're like, how you gonna, like, how somebody hold money over your head? But you have to think about it too, like what Tenille said, generational. A lot of our grandmothers or great grandmothers, they really didn't have work experience, nor did they really barely finish high school. So the reason why a lot of times they stayed with their abusers is because they didn't have any education or any like work skills, so they needed money to survive and money to live. So they stayed with their abusers and they just dealt with it to just to maintain. Yeah. So, and a lot of people are in financial abusive situations too. It's like, well, he doesn't really hit me, but he doesn't treat me the best. But he pays the bills. So it's like he pays the bills, so I'm stay with him. So,
or they lack the specific type of lifestyle that they're able to get that person.
Mm-hmm.
It's
another one I'll just throw in there is using children and like threats and coercion and that kind of thing. But children is a big one too. That keeps it's not a specific type of abuse, but it's one of the tools that a lot of abusers use to manipulate the situation or force someone to reconsider not leaving.
Mm-hmm. Lord.
So is there a way that you guys kind of like, I want to say, I guess the word I'm looking for is prioritize how you guys handle a case over at Safe Alliance? And can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so there's lots of different ways you can seek help from Safe Alliance. So a lot of our clients are what we consider non-residential clients. So they're coming to us for advocacy and counseling support. We offer counseling through our Sexual Trauma Resource Center. For sexual assault, for domestic violence, we partner with Community Support Services, a local county-run organization, and they provide our counseling services for domestic violence. But the advocacy piece looks very different for everyone. Sometimes it is maybe someone was able to get out on their own, but money's tight and they need help applying for housing, or maybe they want to move, but they're worried about the abuser finding their address online. So there's things like the address confidentiality program, victims compensation if they were hurt or property damage, things that they can't afford to fix. We help them kind of apply for those types of things. But then advocacy is also just learning more about abuse and fully understanding your situation, making sure you kind of know, helping them set their goals and figure out where they want to go from there when they start their healing journey. As far as shelter goes, we do have some criteria for shelter. The main one is that it's imminent danger. And that's one, it can be really tough sometimes to tell someone no. But when you have two situations and one person, maybe they left and went and stayed with their mom and that's not working out too well, so they need somewhere to go, but they're not in imminent danger as far as being in that household with the abuser compared to someone who is and at risk of harm right in this moment. So that's kind of how we prioritize when it comes to shelter. And it's really important that the community understand that. But at the same time, if we can't take someone in for shelter for whatever reason, we're never just going to turn that person away. We're still going to make sure you have other resources and definitely know about our non-residential services as well.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I know that when most people hear the words domestic violence, they tend to think of it as only with women. I know that's not necessarily true. Do you know the percentage of men to women, and do you guys work with men as well?
We definitely work with males. That's one reason we stress domestic violence shelter and not sometimes you'll hear those old terms like battered women shelter and stuff like that. And we definitely want to get rid of that terminology in the community so that everybody knows it is all inclusive. Just beyond male and female, we serve all genders and gender identities. So LGBTQ plus individuals are welcome as well. We've had several transgender individuals, several men, even men with their children, stay in our shelter from time to time. So our services are open to everyone. When it comes to domestic violence being mainly a women's issue, it is true that majority of victims are women, but it's also lots and lots of men or other individuals experiencing it. Because of the stigma around it, it's hard to say like numbers. You hear 1 in 10 men, 1 in 9 typically experience domestic violence compared to 1 in 4 women. But it's hard to say how clear those numbers are because a lot of times the males just aren't coming forward because there's so much stigma around it and they're scared or embarrassed and think people will look down on them if they do. So that's kind of one of our things that we really try to work hard on in the community is getting rid of that stigma and that mentality.
What do you guys do that for everyone?
And that's something that I was thinking about as you guys were talking and as I was reading. What are some of the things or some of the language that you guys use to try to destigmatize, like, especially in the African American community? You know, a man coming forth, you know, and saying that, you know, he's been a victim of domestic violence. Like, what are some things that, as a community, we can kind of do to kind of help push that agenda and make sure that our Black men know that it's okay, come forward.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's really there's no true words I can tell you. It's really finding your own words. But the more that we have these conversations, these taboo topics per se, talking about them in our communities, in our circles, in our families. I mean, there's people in my family that, in my mind, they're crazy and they're just not on the same level as me. And we don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, but you love them still. But that doesn't mean if I hear them talk wrong about someone or about a situation like this, for example, I'm going to call them out on it. I'm not going to just sit there and let it be okay either. So it's really that. It's you know, we use the term ally a lot. If you're a true ally, you're not just sitting back saying, "Oh, they shouldn't do that." You're speaking up and saying something about it. So it's really calling people out on it. I definitely think the more that males can talk to each other and encourage one another to reach out for help and make sure it's understood amongst each other that it's okay to be fragile and vulnerable, that helps. And then the other thing I would say is just starting these conversations early from a very young age. We have, I don't know if y'all are familiar with toxic masculinity, but just that I figure you are. So that terminology and that idea, I mean, it's instilled and ingrained in us from a very young age. So the earlier we're talking about what healthy relationships look like, if we're, you know, from a young age telling a little boy he can't cry and he can't, you know, do this, but it's okay for the girl to do it, it kind of sets the tone for that. And it's hard to turn it off and change it when someone becomes an adult. So starting young is my piece of advice.
Agreed.
Can I ask,
that
do you
touched
find
home for me.
yourself disappointed with court decisions as it relates to domestic violence situations? Like, how do you see most situations turning out? Does it turn out better for the victims, or is it always like it could go either way?
It honestly boils down to who the judge is. There's lots of factors that go into play in it, and I'm not going to say I have an opinion one way or another. There are cases I've heard of where I'm just like, I cannot believe they didn't give that person their protective order, or something like that. But every experience is so different. It's hard to sit and compare them. But what I will say is who we're voting for, our judges that we're putting in these offices, a lot of times those smaller elections that a lot of people don't pay attention to,
right?
That's what gives people the results that they get. I do think here in Mecklenburg County, with the current DA that we've had, we've made a lot of progress, and I think people are having more positive outcomes, but there's always still room to grow. The more that our judges and law enforcement officers and, lawyers, everybody is educated about this, the better outcomes that our victims and survivors have as well. But my 2 cents is pay attention to who we're putting in office.
I know you were saying each judge is different. Do you find that when you have males, they don't really take it as serious?
I'll say, let me set the tone and say that's not my area of expertise when it comes to the law side of it. So I'm speaking more from my personal opinion. So I'm taking off my Safe Alliance hat for a second. I will say yes and no. Yes. But it's getting better. But I've also seen women who are just as harsh. So I don't really think it matters about the gender of the judge. It's more so about that judge's background and understanding of these situations and how people get into them, and knowing that they really are as serious as they are, even though sometimes people don't think it is.
Right.
I know that, of course, COVID has been the highlight of 2020, besides the election that's never ending. But I also know with people being stuck at home and stressed at home, it's made domestic violence like a really more serious problem. It's gone up like 30% over the country, I think. I'm not sure if that's the number. But yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you can finish.
I don't know. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, experts say that in any natural disaster, domestic violence increases, and the COVID pandemic is definitely considered a type of natural disaster. Okay. And so it definitely has increased. There's lots of reasons why. I think just from the beginning of it all, when we were all on lockdown and told we had to stay in our homes, typically the work day and the school day, that's an escape for people who are living in abusive situations. At least my abuser goes off to work, so I know I have these few hours where I can breathe a little. I'm not, worried about what's going to happen. Kids get to escape the abusive situation at home and go to school and be around other children, that kind of thing. So just being forced to have to stay together, and we all understand that was done for a reason, to protect us all, but it did make it more dangerous for people living in those situations. And then if you add the job loss and money issues, and we've all done more of that this year. All of those things, they heighten it. I will say none of it is an excuse. Anybody who's an abuser chooses to do what they're doing. Alcohol, drugs, all of that kind of stuff can make someone more dangerous, or heighten what they're already doing, but it's still their choice to do it. It's not the cause of them doing it.
Mm-hmm. Do you see many same-sex couples come through your doors, like at Safe Alliance?
It's a growing number. I'll say it's a increasing number. I think we still have room to grow and some work to do to make sure same-sex couples, or couples is not the right term because we don't serve the abusive partner, but same-sex, those in same-sex relationships know that they are welcome in our door. So we try to participate in things like Pride each year and work with organizations like Time Out Youth or PFLAG, places like that, and make sure that they're aware of our services, because a lot of times if you're not in that circle, it's hard to get people to trust and believe that you truly are there to help them. So the more that we can spread the word to those who they trust in those circles, the more that they're coming through our doors.
That's awesome.
I saw someone asked a question. It popped away real fast. I didn't get to read it off.
This question, I think, is what she really wanted to answer. A lot of domestic violence against trans individuals. Do you guys have programs that cater to that genre?
So we tried at one point having like a LGBTQ support group. We didn't have a whole lot of interest in it in the time, but that's been a while ago. So it's not something we specifically do right now, but we totally make sure that if we have an individual who identifies that way come through our doors, if we're not offering a program that fits their needs, we're connecting them with a resource that does, so that they can take advantage of that while they're in our care.
Okay.
The second question was, do you guys accept donations and do you have street outreach?
Street outreach, I will say not as much. That's an area I totally, just in my particular role, would love to grow a little bit. We do have materials available, and lots of people in the community who know about us that are doing that type of advocacy and outreach, that will come and get our information and make sure they're handing it out to people. So it's happening. It's more of a grassroots kind of community thing, the way that it's getting out there. But we're open to it. And then as far as donations go, we always need something. Running a shelter that takes care of people and provides all of the needs. So you can go to safealliance.org. There's a get involved section, and you'll see about collection drives and donations and that kind of thing if you're interested.
Sweet. I think a lot of people, when they hear about this topic, they tend to think of marriages and long-term boyfriend-girlfriend relationships. I don't think people really understand that you could be just dating someone or just met someone, and it could still be as traumatizing, if not more.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Domestic violence, it's a thing that it doesn't discriminate. It hits people that's, of all ages, races, economic status, gender, you name it. And it's the same. It doesn't matter what length of time the relationship has been taking place. We have calls where people have been literally in a relationship with someone for a week and turned out it wasn't great and they were in this horrible situation. But then we've had people like 70 some years old walk through our doors who have been married for 50 years and just got to the point where they could escape it and ready to take that move. So it's all across the board.
Have you ever been in situations where you've seen a client go back to their partner who was abusive, and how do you handle that situation?
That is a tough one. I have seen that a few times. I'm happy to say I'm seeing less of it. Which is a good thing, but it's all up to that individual. Statistics show that it takes about 7 times for an individual to truly be done with a intimate partner violent relationship. And that sounds crazy to people, especially when you're on the outside looking in. It's like, this person's beating you, they're taking your money, they're doing this, they're doing that. How in the world could you go back? But we're not in it. And it's easy to judge something when you're not the one in it. And like going back to what we were talking about earlier with how am I going to pay rent? How am I going to take care of my kids? And, all of those things is lots of reasons why people go back. So my advice is to not judge and don't question those decisions when they make those choices. and just be there for them and be ready for them if and when it comes to the time that they're ready to get out of it again. And just hope that as long as you're there and being that supportive system and truly listening to them and not telling them what to do, they'll get there. They'll eventually get there. And we just pray that it's, before it gets to the point where it could be loss of life, which unfortunately is the result for some individuals. But it's just a crazy thing that's hard to understand. But we just have to keep
always the hardest part.
I'm sorry, we didn't catch what you said, Patrice.
I said, for me, that's the hardest part when they go back. And especially if they go back and try to hide it. I had friends in college everywhere that, what I did learn is that you cannot get in the middle of that, whatever's going on. There's a fight going on, whatever, just back up. Try to force the issue, it's only going to drive them back quicker. And that's something that I had to learn because it was, that knee-jerk reaction of what are you doing?
Right. That's me. Like, what are you doing? Why do you keep doing this to yourself?
Yeah, and sometimes that's the thing that drives them back even more is people questioning, are you doing the right thing? So I'm going to show you, whether it is or not.
So I have a question. Like, as friends, that are supposed to be like support systems to that person, how is a friend, how is a support system supposed to go about that if, it's hurting them, like it's hurting like a friend, like me, for example. This isn't for real, but like, I have a friend who's getting abused, but what I'm saying, it's hurting me because I'm trying to be there for you. I'm trying to, sit here and listen to you and then watch you go get your ass beat. So it's like, what do you do as a friend and how do you kind of balance that? Because I'm the type of person that it's only going to last for so long, and then I'm going to do something about it or I'm going to remove myself from the whole situation. So I want to make sure that if I ever do encounter that situation, I know what to do and not, worsen the situation.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really knowing your relationship with that individual and figuring out, I can give you tips and advice, but it's still that gut feeling of what works for you and that individual. If y'all are close, they're going to flip out if you say a certain thing or do a certain thing, so you shouldn't do that and those types of things. But really, one, believing them. So if someone comes to you and discloses, just being a listening ear and believing them. Don't try to fix it for them. A lot of times people just want to talk and know that someone's willing to listen to them. And that helps them kind of process and work their way to what they need to do to leave and be done with the situation. So sometimes we just need to learn to shut up and listen, because it's easy to jump in and always try to tell people I hear the problem now, I want to fix it. And that's not what people need all the time. Another thing is, when I say believe, I want to stress on that, because a lot of times people might talk to a loved one or a friend and tell them this is happening, but abusers are very smart people. They are charismatic, they turn it on, that charm on when they're in front of the family and friends, and then they're completely different once the door is closed and people are gone. So you might have one perception of that individual and just can't imagine, or maybe they're a person that has like a high profile job or whatever. You can't imagine them being that individual. Nobody's just coming saying somebody's doing this stuff to them just for the heck of it. So, believe them and don't question it, even if you think it just couldn't be. Other pieces of advice are calling our hotline. So we have what's known as the Greater Charlotte Hope Line at Safe Alliance. That's also available on our website. The hotline is there 24/7. So sometimes you just don't know what to do. And that's what our advocates are there for, to kind of help you talk through the situation. They can give you tips and advice on things you can say or suggest and do. Other things are just helping that individual plan and prepare. do what we call safety planning. So if you do think they're ready to make a move, it actually becomes more dangerous for someone when they're trying to leave an abusive situation. That's typically when we see the most loss of life, is when they are leaving or just recently left. So safety planning and making sure they have the important documents they need that they might not be able to get to, or have a bag ready and packed that you're holding for them. So if they leave spur of the moment, those types of things.
Mm-hmm. My grandma used to always say, you never tell no man you leave him, you just leave. And I used to be like, Grandma, what you talking about? And she said, you don't know. And I was like, girl, okay. But it makes sense now.
She's right.
Like, yeah, she's right. Like, you don't be like, I'm leaving you. You just leave. Like,
you gotta have a bug out bag.
Yeah, because domestic violence is all about power and control. That abusive partner having power and control over the other partner in the relationship. So when someone leaves, you feel that power and control, that loss of it. So that's when it becomes more dangerous, because they want it back and they'll do anything to get it.
I used to not think that my situation was violent because I would fight my partner back, and I thought victims as people who only got beaten on, not people who fought back. So I was like, I ain't no victim. Like, I'm fighting him just as much as he's fighting me. But it's like, I had to sit back and look like that's not what you want in a relationship. Like, you don't want to fight your partner all the time.
Yeah.
That's not fun.
Sean,
you look like you want to share.
I'm sitting back. I was taking this all in. Literally, the whole conversation y'all having was literally my life. Listening to Tenille talk and listening to her, how she broke all that down. Like, I mean, literally, I was in one of those situations where somebody was in control, and I literally took me, like she said, it takes about 7 times. It took me about 6.5 times to keep leaving and coming back and trying to make it work, and having 28 stitches in my forehead and lip, and I mean, literally just messed all up because I thought I was in love with someone who was supposed to be in love with me. So talking about this topic is very sensitive for me. A lot of times I start shaking sometimes even still talking about it because it's still kind of fresh. However, I'm very happy that I'm out of that situation and that I have moved forward with my life, and I'm proud of the person that I am today. But at the same time, I do want to be a voice for people who don't realize when they're dealing with someone who is domestic and don't really know that they're that way, or that they carry those characteristics or traits, because they will manipulate you and make you feel like you're the bad person and you're always doing wrong and you're complaining, and it's wrong to express yourself. You're not supposed to be crying. You're supposed to be tough, and you're not supposed to have feelings. And literally everything y'all was saying during this entire time literally was everything that I've dealt with. So it's like, just knowing now what I know, if I see any of that being portrayed in front of me from it, like if I see it in my friends dealing with it, family members, I don't assess the situation immediately. Like she said, I kind of let them do their own thing, but at the same time, I'm that shoulder. Like, I'm letting you know, like, I've been through it too. I know where you at. I ain't gonna tell you what to do, but make the right decision for yourself and realize when you ready and you done, when you know you fully and truly are done with somebody. Trust me, you gonna know. You gonna know, because I looked at the person that I was with for 6.5 years, and I told him before I actually, because the same, like you just said, Bryce, I didn't tell him I was leaving. I waited until he went to work. I packed all my stuff up, put it in the car. When he came home, I handed him his key. He asked where I was going. I said back to North Carolina. I already knew I felt like it was about to be a fight right then and there. So to avoid that, I diffused the situation and said, well, is there anything else that you would like to talk about or discuss before I leave? Like, do you want to, like this? I'm giving you the opportunity to talk. It's not changing my decision. I'm still leaving. I'm giving you the chance to talk. Say what you need to say. He said he didn't want to say anything. I went and picked up my check in Manhattan, New York. I headed back to North Carolina, and I ain't talked and seen him since. And I don't care. So
yeah. I always tell my friends, pay attention to like the microaggressions, like subtle things like why you friends with them, or why you wearing that, or where you going. It's like
where you at?
Social media, like all that crazy stuff.
And then sometimes we get so used to that, used to some of those questions and some of that aggressive behavior. That's how we feel like we supposed to. It's something that
Yeah, like he loved me, he protected me.
I know people that would look for that and like that, because that's what they feel like a relationship is supposed to be like. And I don't think that that's it.
Yeah. I mean, it all goes back to what I was saying earlier. That's why you have to start having conversation. Like I have a 2-year-old, in every way possible. When me and my husband are playing with her, whatever, I try to model already because she's paying attention to everything. Model what healthy relationships look like, because even from that young of an age, you can set the tone for what somebody understands it to be and what they're willing to accept when they get older.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I always think I try to keep this little thing in my head and say that some people were raised off of survival and some people were raised off of love. And I know for me, growing up, I literally watched my mom get beat on. I watched women get beat on. I literally seen it myself. So I'm thinking, like, in a relationship, like, it's okay. He hit me. He still love me. It's all right.
I can hit him back.
Okay. Like, in the reality of the situation, it really was not what it was supposed to be. But, I seen it, so I was accustomed to it. I thought my mama dealt with it, and she was with her man for such and such amount of years, and they stayed together, and they fought and went in and out of jail and stuff. So I'm thinking it's okay for me to do it. Like,
yeah, and that's a big one, especially since we're keeping it 100 in our Black community. That is like we everything's quiet. We talk about this, you don't talk about that outside the house or outside the family, or if you're going somewhere for help, it's just to church. And and I'm not knocking that. It's nothing wrong with that. But we have to be able to open up beyond what we're used to and have those I'm fortunate enough to say I've never been in an abusive relationship. And I have a wonderful husband, but I wouldn't have known what that looks like or known what I didn't want if my mom hadn't been upfront with me from the beginning and shared with me what life was like growing up, watching my grandmother experience abuse and my grandmother, even once she's gotten older, and she talks to us about it and she makes sure that she tells her story so that people know. But if it hadn't been for them doing that, I probably would have fell into that same trap.
And I think I love to hear when parents kind of model what you get, that behavior that you're talking about in regards to, I don't care, you're 2 years old, let's start now. I feel like a lot of times parents wait till it's too late to have conversations. Oh, she's too young for this, or he's too young for that, things like that. When you're not the only influence, so it's better to get in front of it rather than get behind it. So I'm always behind that conversation. One of the things that I kind of wanted to ask, and this is going to be something that's very taboo, because it's taboo for me to even ask. Now I'm thinking about it, but so we talk about domestic violence. We talk about the person that has been the victim in that situation, and we offer services for them, and we definitely need to make sure that they're safe and they get out of the situation. But I also often think about rehabilitation for the abuser. And are there anything that you know of after lockup, after they've been in jail, after this and after that people are recommending therapy or mandating people to go to therapy, things like that? Like, are those things that are actually happening to abusers?
Yeah, so I will stress again, Safe Alliance helps the victim, the survivor. We don't do the abuser work, but we do community support services, who I mentioned earlier. They have in their intervention prevention section, they have a program called NOVA. And I cannot remember what the acronym stands for, but it's a program. A lot of times the participants are court mandated to go through it, but you can do it without that court mandate just because you want to. So it's like group counseling and things like that to help those who have been abusers. There's also a great program called Impact that serves this area, and it's a rehabilitative program for abusers. The key piece that I will say, though, well, two things I'll say to this. Couples counseling is never the answer. Like I said, these situations are about power and control. So if you're sending someone to couples counseling saying it's a couple issue, nothing's going to be accomplished. If anything, it's going to make it worse for the non-abusive partner, because the abusive partner is going to dominate the conversations in counseling. They might lash out and retaliate against that individual after the fact. So it's not a couples counseling issue. The other thing I will say is abusing someone is a choice, and the same way you choose to abuse someone, you have to choose not to. And until an abuser can admit their wrongdoing and admit that they have a problem and need help and want that help, not much is going to change. So I won't say it's impossible for an abuser to change, but they have to want to do it.
Mm-hmm. And I'm actually very glad that you just popped the bubble. That bubble is recommending couples counseling. That is a bubble that was just popped just now for me. I don't know for anybody else.
No, you should. If you beating me and I'm telling the therapist you beating me, you gonna beat me when I get home. No, you're not doing that.
That's true.
Do therapy individually and heal individually.
Preferably after I leave the house.
Yes.
Do you guys offer like rehabilitation for the abuse? Because I'm sure that, you know, if you've endured like abuse for a long time, even after you make that decision to leave, there's still some like emotional scarring, and your mind is probably still fucked up. And you still have to, you kind of have to redesign your brain to regain that self-worth, I guess. So do you guys offer anything like that?
Yeah, that's a lot of what our counseling program provides is just individual support to kind of work through that trauma that people have endured. A lot of domestic violence survivors have some form of PTSD or, you know, like depression, anxiety, those types of things. Low self-esteem, just everything across the board, you name it. There's no one size fits all. It's different for everyone. So I can't say if you're a survivor, this is going to be the way that it affects you, but it definitely takes some time to undo what, you know, people have put in your head and put you down all of this time, undo all of that. And like you say, kind of reset the brain. We also offered like support groups. So we found a lot of success in the individuals that we serve, kind of leaning on one another and learning from each other's experiences and uplifting each other. So the support groups are great. And then we have a program called PATH that some of our clients go through. And that one, it stands for, the C is silent, but preventing continual abuse through healing. And so a lot of times these are individuals who have dealt with substance use or alcohol and kind of using those things to cope with their situation. So it helps them through that process when they're in recovery. And they kind of take this journey of like where I started in life, kind of what got me into this situation. I'm out of it now, and where am I going from here? So a couple of different ways we go about it, and there's no like mandated you have to go to this many counseling sessions or you have to attend this group, because everybody's different, and what works for me is not going to necessarily work for you. So we kind of let the individual guide them and determine what's the best fit for them.
What about the children who witnessed the abuse? Is there any services for them?
Yeah, that is a good one. For everything that we do with the adults in our shelter, we provide similar services for children. So the children can receive counseling services if needed. We even have like support groups and for teens or for elementary school students, that kind of thing. And, you know, of course, we're not talking about, you know, the abuse as real as we are with adults, but maybe they're talking about bullying, or my sister gets on my nerves and I want to hit her, but instead of hit her, this is what I do, or, you know, things like that, and putting it on their level. But yeah, we really strive, like I said, domestic violence is a generational thing. So statistics show if you're raised in a household or abused as a child or witnessed abuse as a child, 9 times out of 10, you're either going to grow up to be an abuser or be a victim of abuse. So we strive to do everything that we can to break that cycle and make sure kids receive the same support that their parents are.
Wow.
Period.
Well, I don't want to wrap this conversation up because I'm learning a lot, and you just breaking it down so easy for us to kind of
Tearing
understand.
up still.
Right.
But we do have to bring it to a close. I first of all, talking for all of us, want to thank you for coming on.
Thank
and
you.
and dropping the knowledge, dropping the mic like
Yes.
you have.
Thank you.
And this one of the things that I want to make sure that we let you guys know as an audience and that are watching, conversation does not stop here. We like to say that we like to come into it and kind of have a conversation with you guys so you can go out and share with your social networks. And that's what we're challenging you to do today. Please do not make the conversation stop here. Share this live, talk to your friends. Matter of fact, talk tonight over dinner and have this type of conversation. So and inbox us and let us know how the conversation went. If you would like. But I do thank you guys for watching. I can't thank you enough, Ms. Banner, for coming on and having a conversation with us.
Thank you so much.
So much.
And that's it. But before we go, so listen.
You already know. They know.
Last week, we did not do this, and I apologize to everybody that was expecting this because we got some inboxes. So I'm gonna make sure that we do it this week. Okay. Ms. Banner, you in for a treat.
I can't wait because I love you all. So I'm excited.
Oh, goodness.
I got to turn my hand around.
Okay.
Getting tested.
What?
It's sexy.
It's sexy.
Period.